And it's some 24 minutes after 7. You're watching the AM show. Let's do our special talk conversation now. We're talking about quite a number of things. We're talking about the legal hurdles that we have to overcome in appointing a special prosecutor. We're also talking about the fact that the president says we'll be electing MMDCEs sometimes in 2018, but there are definitely some legal hurdles to overcome as well. What are they? And also, when there's a new government, just like we've seen, almost all CEOs of state institutions have to leave office. Why is that so, really? Is everything so political that we need politicians, even as CEOs in state agencies as well? And I think that this conversation has come up, the legality of members of parliament taking monies from institutions at the committee levels. We'll touch on that as well. I'm happy to announce that my guest chairs two very powerful committees in Parliament. He is the chair of the Judiciary Committee, also the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, and also a member of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. Mr. Ben Abudullah is my guest this morning, the Honorable Ben Abudullah Banda, Member of Parliament for Offenso South constituency in the Ashanti region. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
We're also hoping that very quickly we'll be joined by the Honorable Member Inusa Fuseni, who's also a legal practitioner in this very conversation. But I'll start with you. Thank you very much for coming to our show.
You're welcome.
And may I also add that you sit on that ad hoc committee that's investigating. We were told that your job has come to an end, really.
We met yesterday. Tentatively, we've agreed that the job has come to an end, but it's not certain whether we've come to the end of the road or not.
Okay.
Once I'm a member of that committee, I don't want to be compelled to go into the nitty-gritty of the matter.
Definitely.
So let's leave the matter as it is. At the appropriate time, whatever happens, definitely you get to hear of it.
Okay. And we're talking about the Jogata committee, the committee that's investigating Parliament itself on the alleged bribery situation. My guest is also a member of that committee. But let's talk about the subjects that we've tabled for discussion. And we want to touch on the special prosecutor first of all. But I looked up for a definition for a special prosecutor. I want to read it out. It says, generally, he's a lawyer both from outside the government, a lawyer from outside the government appointed by an attorney general. And this has to do with the United States, because I was looking at that particular issue, by Congress to investigate a government official for misconduct while in office. What would our definition be for the purposes of a prosecutor in Ghana?
Very well. A bill is yet to come before Parliament. And I believe when the bill is brought before Parliament, the nitty-gritty of the bill will be spelled out. But I don't think that the definition you've given, I was also looking at the definition of the special prosecutor as pertains in the United States of America. The definition you've given is not going to be different from the definition that we may have in Ghana, because a special prosecutor is special because he will be assigned a certain special responsibility to perform, a special criminal responsibility to perform. In this particular case, or within this context, I believe the special prosecutor will be mandated to deal with specific criminal offenses, to wit probably corruption offenses and other related offenses. And the special prosecutor within this context definitely should be a lawyer, because if you are not a lawyer, having the legal brain, you cannot, as it were, competently deal with matters bordering on criminal prosecutions in this particular case. So first of all, the special prosecutor may come from the government or outside the government. The person may not even be a partisan person. The person may be a non-partisan person, a person who is not known in the political circle. And secondly, the person shall be a lawyer. But with respect to the number of years that the person may have practiced as a lawyer, all will be spelled out in the bill that is yet to be brought before Parliament.
Okay. So, you know, there have been talks about a special prosecutor. Is it from where you sit in Parliament, is it that you think that the Attorney General cannot perform that kind of duty? That's why we need the special person to come and take on this criminal aspect of the prosecution.
I think there is a perception that because the Attorney General doubles as the Minister of Justice, there is always a difficulty when the Attorney General is obligated to prosecute members of his own government. If you quite remember, in the previous government, there was a whole lot of brouhaha about certain judgment debts that were paid under very bizarre circumstances. Even when the then president ordered that those judgment debts ought not to be paid, certain people went behind him and paid those judgment debts. And secondly, you know, the previous government, His Excellency President Mills set up a commission to look at to sample views from the public as to the possibility of amending the 1992 Constitution. And in their report, they recommended that the office of the Attorney General ought to be decoupled from the office of the Minister of Justice. And I think the people of Ghana, or we've come to a state where the people of Ghana have come to the realization that it is time that the office of the Attorney General is decoupled from the office of the Minister of Justice. Because the perception, as I've already stated, is that the Attorney General, when he's given the responsibility to prosecute his or her own officers from the same government, it becomes difficult. That is why His Excellency the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, on his campaign tour, did promise the people of Ghana that when he was elected the President of Ghana, he will ensure that the office of the Special Prosecutor is established.
Big question.
And he's going by the promise that he made to the people of Ghana.
How independent would the Special Prosecutor be, considering the fact that that person is also going to be appointed by the President? One of the issues we've tabled is CEOs being sacked when there's a new administration, which is maybe given some view to the fact that those people are affiliated to the governing party at any point in time. So is this person going to be independent? How independent is he going to be from the politicians, for instance?
You see, the problem that we have in Ghana is not a problem of creating institutions. The problem that we have in Ghana is not a problem of creating laws. We have a lot of laws. We have a lot of institutions. The problem has to do with the political will and the political, the commitment of the government. If we talk about independence or formal independence, that may be difficult because when the bill comes before Parliament and per Article 88 of the Constitution, the power to prosecute, the power to initiate all criminal prosecutions is vested in the Attorney General. So if we want a formal independence, then there is the need to amend Article 88 of the Constitution. You see, there are two ways of looking at the issue. First of all, if we want to decouple the office of the Attorney General from the office of the Minister of Justice, then we need to amend the Constitution. And that provision, Article 88, is an entrenched provision. If we need to amend the Constitution, that Article 88, then Constitution says to the extent that it is an entrenched provision, then we need to go to a referendum. That is cumbersome, and that will take a little bit of time because people will have to vote. And I mean, there is a procedure for deciding whether the people have really decided whether that article should be amended or not. But we ought not to go or go to that angle because it will take a little bit of time. We might even cross this 4-year term without necessarily amending Article 88. But we want a short circuitous way of dealing with the matter.
Okay. So we're not going to be touching Article 88
we are
as
not
it
touching
is now.
Article 88.
Okay.
But with respect to the independence of the special prosecutor, formal independence will be difficult because the Attorney General will still have more or less supervisory role to play over the special prosecutor. But as I've already stated, the issue of the special prosecutor being independent formally is difficult. But it takes the political will of the president to ensure that this is the office I've created. I'm ensuring that all prosecutions assigned to the special prosecutor to deal with the same as much as practicable. There will be no interference or little interference with the responsibility of the special prosecutor. So if the government decides that because of the concerns raised by the people of Ghana with respect to the difficulty with Attorney General trying to prosecute his or her own members, the special prosecutor, the office of the special prosecutor is the best way to go. And as much as practicable, there ought not to be much interference in the work of the special prosecutor. I think we can achieve that.
So there's something that's just ringing in my head. And why do we have an Attorney General then, if that Attorney General cannot be or is not capable of prosecuting people who go wrong? I mean, I don't get it. Then why don't we take that Attorney General away and bring somebody who can both be a general Attorney General and be a special prosecutor as well, and just carry out this exercise?
That is the dictate of the Constitution. That is why earlier on I did indicate that if we want to, because the Attorney General, apart from being the legal advisor of the government, is also, quote unquote, the principal prosecutor of the states. So he or she has dual functions. If I have to address your concern, if you are saying we should get somebody else to deal with that issue, then first of all, we cannot deal with that issue without necessarily amending the Constitution.
No, my point is, leave it as it is, as Article 88 states, but just have a person who is an Attorney General who is capable of carrying out the job of a special prosecutor. So you don't have another person coming into the fray, since the Attorney General is going to have oversight responsibility anyway. Why don't you have somebody who is close to an independent Attorney General?
How would that be possible? Because the Attorney General is appointed by the President.
The special prosecutor is going to be appointed by the President also?
Yes, the special prosecutor will be appointed by the President. But this is in tandem with the wish of the people of Ghana. This is in tandem with the promise made by His Excellency, the President. This is in tandem with the committee set out to deal with the amendment of the Constitution. The people of Ghana are saying that we've practiced this constitutional democracy for a while. We've realized that there's a deficiency, or there are deficiencies with respect to certain provisions of the Constitution. There are certain provisions of the Constitution whose practicability becomes difficult. So we've gotten to a stage where we need to get a special prosecutor. As for the independence of the special prosecutor, that will come from the government. Because if the government sees that this is the responsibility of assigned to the special prosecutor, there ought not to be interference, or there should be a little interference. As much as practical, the decision or the wish of the president will be carried into force. The problem in Ghana is not about the creation of establishment. The problem is the lack of political will and the commitment from the power that be to ensure that certain corrupt practices are punished.
How, as citizens, how can we be sure that this will not just be another creation and we'll have somebody just come in there to sit there and not carry out what he's mandated to, and probably, perhaps, like some people are suspecting, he will only be looking at the opposition?
When you don't get to the bridge, you will not know how to cross the bridge. Thus, it's a novel situation that we are going to create. Let's see how it works. When it is brought into being and it is practiced for a while, and at a point in time we realize that after all the office of the special prosecutor is needless, then we'll scrap it off.
So this is just a trial. This is just something that we're trying out.
If you haven't done anything before and you want to bring it into being, it is something that you're going to give it a try. So for now, we say we're going to give it a try and to see whether the office of the special prosecutor will be as efficacious, as competent as the people of Ghana all want it to be. And I believe and I'm sure that taking into consideration the kind of person we are dealing with, that is the president, taking into consideration his character, his track record, his historical antecedent, and so on and so forth, I'm sure that the office of the special prosecutor will be mandated and allowed to work as effectively as the people of Ghana want it to be.
Let's look at this other option where you think this won't perhaps go there. A total amendment, a total independence, separation of the two jobs. Why don't we look at that area instead? Since when we know that the office is totally independent, if we have something like a SHRAJ or an electoral commission where we know absolutely the leaders are independent, maybe it will bring a lot more credibility to the functions of the special prosecutor, even though this is going to take a much longer time with a possible referendum and all that.
Maybe we have to look at that from a different angle. Not now, maybe later in future, or probably in no distant future. Now that the report of the committee is ready, I don't know when the bill will be brought before Parliament with respect to the amendment of the Constitution. If we take the bill through the various stages and that aspect of the Constitution is amended, probably when that bill comes into force, the office of the special prosecutor, once it's going to be established by an act of Parliament, will be scrapped. So that is not going to be immediate. That might take a little bit of time. But within this 4-year period that the president has been given the mandate to run the affairs of this country, that is what he has promised the people of Ghana to do. And we are hoping that that promise will be carried into effect. And we are hoping that the office of the special prosecutor will be effective and as competent as the people of Ghana want it to be. We don't have to be pessimistic. We have to be optimistic. Let's be assured and certain that this office that we are creating will work. It has worked in other jurisdictions. Why are we saying that it can't work in this part of our world? It can work, and it can work very effectively with little or minimal interference, because the Attorney General will still have some supervisory role over over the office of the special prosecutor. But it ought not to be unnecessary interference. We have IOCO. IOCO was established by an act of parliament, but it has the power to prosecute. That power was given to it by the Attorney General. How many times have you heard that people have complained about the work of the IOCO? It is working.
Oh, but we have had some complaints.
Yes, at times, once it is an establishment, whatever be the case, it is not a perfect institution. It may also have its failings. It may have its successes. The same thing may apply to the office of the special prosecutor. Let's see how it is brought into being. Let's read or analyze the terms and conditions setting up the office of the special prosecutor, and let's see how it works in no distant future.
Do I take it that the committee has also done some work on this and has issued a report, because you referred to a report by the committee is ready?
Not this one.
Okay.
The bill hasn't come before Parliament yet. Until and unless the bill is brought before Parliament becomes seized with a jurisdiction to deal with a bill.
Okay. So when is it coming? You should know, because you're also on the not on the government but the majority side.
But that is the prerogative of the executive. The executive will have to decide, and I'm not part of the executive, as to when the bill will be brought before Parliament. But I'm sure the bill will be brought very soon.
In this first year?
I should think so, in this first year, or probably next year. But I believe it will be brought in this first year for Parliament to deal with the same.
Are there possible names? Because we heard about 2 names already, and we're not sure if there are more people that. I know you give very little away, but
no,
are there people we should be eyeing?
I have also heard the names being bandied about, as you are saying, but I'm not sure whether those persons or the president has decided definitively that this is the person who's going to appoint as the special prosecutor. I haven't heard that.
Is Parliament going to have a say? Is there room for advice as to who should be?
I think per the dictates of our Constitution, per Article 70 of the Constitution, if anybody is to be appointed into the office, into a public office, it is the president that has the mandate to do that, I think in consultation with the Council of State. I don't know how the contents of the bill are going to be, but if we are going to go by the Constitution, anybody who is to be appointed into a public office, it is the mandate and the responsibility of the president to appoint such a person. As to Parliament having a say in that, I have my doubts.
Okay. Let's move into another subject of electing MMDCs. For some reason, some people thought this was going to happen immediately, but apparently not. It's 2018, but 2018 is just also just around the corner. How is this going to happen if we are to elect MMDCs?
Yes, per the current architecture of our Constitution, no, the president is an executive president. He has a lot of powers. He deals with a lot of appointments, like Shraj, the Attorney General, the IGP,
the Electoral Commission,
and so on and so forth. So, per the structure of our Constitution, it is the president that appoints MDCs. Now, that provision is not an entrenched provision. I think there has been a clarion call that there is the need to make the office of the MMDCs elective. The reason is that the MMDCs are perceived to be always pandering to the whims and caprices of the central government. But the MMDCs are appointed to see to the needs of their respective localities. But it is realized that in practice, to a large extent, that is not how it is. Because they are also afraid that it is the president that appoints them. They really, as much as possible, need to pander to the whims and caprices of the president. So what people are saying is just that if we make the office of the MMDCs elective, just like the office of the Member of Parliament, it will make the MMDCs more accountable to the people than pandering to the whims and caprices, even if it's not in the interest of the people. And I think that is the rationale behind the provision dealing with decentralization in Ghana per the structure of the Constitution. Now, per that provision, the provision dealing with the appointment of the MMDCs is not an entrenched provision. So amending that aspect of the Constitution will not be a difficult thing.
Okay.
That's just...
It will not require a referendum, for instance?
No, it doesn't require a referendum.
Okay.
So that will be very simple. That is why the president has indicated that the election of MMDCs will come into force not this year, next year, because getting that provision amended is not going to be as difficult as getting it amended through a referendum.
But what it means is we should also start the process this year.
Yes, when we start the process, it will still be in the form of a bill. It will be brought before Parliament. Parliament will deal with that. You know, it has to go through gazettes and etc., etc. Yeah, and so on and so. It has to be published. Then it is brought before Parliament. Then it will be taken through the normal processes of
First
amending
reading.
first, second reading, and then third reading, and so on and so forth. Then it becomes a law before that aspect of the provision can be competently amended. And when it is so done, starting from next year, 2018, as His Excellency the President has already stated, MMDCs will be elected.
If there's serious commitment to it, how many months should we finish all these processes to get it duly amended?
It depends on when the bill is brought before Parliament. When the bill is brought before Parliament, the Speaker refers the bill to the relevant committee in Parliament. In this particular case, I don't know, but it may be referred to the Committee on Constitutional Legal. That is what I'm contemplating. When it is brought, we have to work on the bill, look at the content of the bill, together with the Attorney General. We have a workshop, we look at the bill, we see whether the bill is inconsistent with any existing legislation, or whether it is inconsistent with the Constitution. If everything is okay, then we prepare a report and bring same before Parliament. We debate upon it, we take the bill through the normal stages, and then it becomes a law. Then that aspect of the Constitution becomes amended. So until and unless the bill is brought before Parliament, I cannot sit here and give you a specific date as to when that aspect of the Constitution will be amended. But I hope, as His Excellency the President has stated, next year, all things being equal, MMDCs will be elected.
Are we also mindful of the fact that those who are going to carry out this exercise of elections is the Electoral Commission? It means more funds to them, because then there's another responsibility coming up. It's not just the general elections, but this as well. Are we ready for that?
Of course, yes. That's why it is said that democracy is quite expensive. And democracy is the only option that we need to adopt. We cannot adopt any other option than making the country democratic and ensuring that our electoral processes are transparent, and ensuring that what the people of Ghana want, as a government, you try to meet the aspirations of the people of Ghana as much as possible. So obviously, once it is the EC that is going to be in charge of ensuring that MMDCs are elected, it's going to go with cost. But I believe when we get to the bridge, we'll get there. We cannot but find money to have that vision realized. And when we are able to set our priorities right, I think at the end of the day, wherever the money is, the money will be brought for the conduct of that election.
As Member of Parliament, how sure are you that you can be able to work with somebody who won on the ticket of NDC, for instance, in your constituency? As District Chief Executive.
I have been in Parliament for 8 years now. I came into Parliament in 2009, at a time when our party had lost power. I've worked with only MCs from the previous government. And the first one, the relationship was cordial. I worked with him perfectly, except the second and the third, whose relationship with me was a bit sore. But you see, as a politician, you should be able to work with anybody, whether the person is from your party or the person is not is not from your party. The overriding interest is to ensure that you are able to do you are able to meet the aspirations of your constituents. If you decide that you're going to be at loggerheads with your DC or with your municipal chief executive, at the end of the day, that conflict is going to work against you. But if the DC also decides that he's going to stampede you as a member of parliament, you should find a nice way of circumventing that problem. And this is what I've been doing all this while. If I realize that you are a DC, you want to stampede my work, you want to make sure that I don't work effectively as a member of parliament, I always have a nice way of dealing with the situation. And I think that has been my secret all this while.
Are your colleagues happy about this? Are they happy about this election of MMDCs?
My colleagues, are you mean the MPs?
Really. Yes, your colleague MPs, particularly those on the majority side.
Yes, to a large extent, almost everybody is happy because it was part of our campaign promises. And when we went on the campaign trail in our various constituencies, we did tell our people what our campaign promises were. We told them that we will elect MMDCs. They were happy. We told them that we're going to have the office of a special prosecutor to deal with certain corrupt practices. They were happy. So the election of the MMDCs is the wish of the people. It's not the wish of the member of parliament. I have been elected by my people not to represent myself, but to represent my people. It is not what I want, but it is what my people want that I have to ensure that it is done for them. So once the people of Ghana are happy, I mean, you cannot get everybody being happy that MMDCs will be elected. There are some who have opposing views, and their views have to be respected. Their views, in one way or the other, may be legitimate. But once majority of people are saying that we should elect MMDs because of one or two reasons, I think it is proper and right that we go with the majority view. It's not what members of parliament on our side want. It's not what members of parliament on the other side of the political divide want, but it is what the people of Ghana want, that we as a government will have to ensure that it is done for them.
Is there anything that you think could delay the implementation of this?
As for what would delay the implementation of that, I doubt. What may delay its implementation is when the bill will be brought before Parliament. What may be a stumbling block is probably the issue of finance. Once government realizes that it will be able to source funds for the conduct of election of MMDCs, it is done, because we only have two hurdles: the bill and sourcing of funds. Once we get the bill promulgated into law, government is able to organize funds. government sets a date that next year, on this particular date, we're going to conduct elections for the elections of MMDCs. That's all. So there are only two hurdles, the bill and money.
I want us to get into another conversation, but perhaps a last one on our previous conversation, which is the special prosecutor. It means that when a government administration ends, that particular special prosecutor leaves with the administration. Is that it? As we're looking at it now.
The bill has not come, so I cannot speak to the content of the bill.
But at least we know that it's not going to be a total referendum where we have a totally independent special prosecutor, like we talked about, just as we have in the boss of Shraj or the Electoral Commission, for instance. So I can imagine that this is almost like a ministerial position.
Yes, more or less. It's a public office. Once it's a public office, and the appointment will be done by the president, just like all other appointments. Once the term of office of the president ends, the term of office of the holder of that office also ends. It's just like appointment of CEOs.
Is it automatic like that with the CEOs?
That is what I'm saying.
The GMPC, the boss, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority boss. I mean, is it automatic that they all leave with an expired administration?
Yeah, that is, unless the president says that they should continue, the Constitution says that to the extent that the president has the power to appoint, he has the power to dismiss. So if a new administration comes, if you are a holder of a public office, you are appointed by the president, you ought to know that once a new administration has come, obviously, your term of office has come to an end.
So this is automatic?
It's not automatic as in, once the new administration comes, you are gone. The president will have to dismiss you.
Okay.
The president will have to dismiss you. If it is the pleasure of the president that you should continue, you will continue. But if it is the pleasure of the president that you ought not to continue, you will not continue. That is the architecture of our constitution.
Is this healthy?
But whether it is healthy or not, it is for the people of Ghana to judge.
But you chair the Legal Constitution Committee in Parliament. You know the legalities of this. Is this something that is helpful?
We've practiced this constitution for about 20 years now. It's not for me to judge whether it is helpful.
I'm just looking at it in the sense that, are we not in the end saying that all these people who are heading all these state institutions as CEOs are government people, they are politicians, they're doing the bidding of the government, so that when an administration ends, we should expect that they will all be fired?
Of course, that is the situation. Because if a new administration comes and you are the CEO of a certain public corporation, you are appointed by the previous government. The vision of the previous government may be different from the vision of the current government. The ideology of the previous government may be different from the ideology of the present government. So the rationale here is that to the extent that the vision and the ideology of the current government may be different from the vision and the ideology of the previous government, how does the current government expect you to implement its vision?
Then where's the independence of that institution? Where's the independence of the institution? Because I'm sure all those
the rest of the
institutions
people remain.
Also have their own vision.
Yes, the civil servants, when a new administration comes, it comes with its new vision. It comes with its vision. It comes with its ideology. That is why we, the MPP government, have decided to implement certain visions that we sold to the people of Ghana, like one district, one factory. It is unprecedented. It is the vision of the MPP, which we must ensure that it is implemented. Like one district, one village, one dam.
But if you have the boss of the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, for instance, and that person has risen through the ranks and has come to the CEO position, then that's also a public servant. Even though the president appoints the person, it doesn't mean that the person is a politician.
No, you see,
can the person also independently carry out with the rest of the organization, carry out your new vision?
You see, we have civil servants. If that's why I'm saying it is a pleasure, it is the prerogative and the pleasure of the president to appoint whoever he deems fit. If he thinks that he should appoint somebody from within that institution, because he thinks that the person will carry along his vision, the person will carry along his ideology, the president will appoint that person from within the institution to head the institution. But the point here is that as soon as the term of office ends, or the president has to exit office because the people of Ghana have voted him out, then you, the CEO, must pack your bag and baggage and go with the president.
You know, it comes back to the question of, is it fair? Because I've worked at the FDA for a number of years. A new administration comes in, the president appoints me as CEO of the Food and Drugs Authority. And then another administration, so I serve for a while, a new administration comes, and then I have to leave. Meanwhile, this is an institution that I have been working with. So I'm not necessarily a politician. The only thing is a politician appointed me to be CEO.
No, you see, but the point is that once it is a political office, it doesn't matter whether before you were appointed, you were a politician or not. That office is a political office. Like the CEO of the National Health Insurance Authority, it's a political office. The CEO of the Food and Drug Board Authority, it's a political office. So all political offices are filled by the president. And to that extent, it is a prerogative and the pleasure of the president to decide whether you should remain in that office or you should go. If the president fires you, the president hasn't committed an offense. And there's nothing like fairness or unfairness about this. If you were working within that institution and you agreed to accept a political portfolio from the president, then you should know right from the word go that your term of office will come to an end. But if you decide for a certain reason you want to remain as a civil servant and don't want to be seen as a political person, then then you should remain as a civil servant and not come out to be seen as a political person. But once you accept the position, the presupposition is that there may be a time that your time will come to an end, and you will need to pack your bag and baggage and go.
Amazing. I'm just looking at the independence of the institutions, irrespective of whoever is in power. But it looks like
the institutions are still independent.
But if the head is not seen as an independent, the head drives, the rest of the people in the institution.
The head drives the vision of the government. It is the head that drives the vision of the government.
So the institutions are living to carry out the vision of the governments, not the institutions themselves.
The institutions don't have the vision of the government ought to be carried into force by the institution. If an institution is mandated to implement one district, one factory, that is the vision of the government. You as an institution cannot carry out into force any other vision than the vision that the government has sold out to the people and has promised the people of Ghana to implement.
But are we saying that the boss who was there before cannot take this vision and make it happen?
Which boss?
Only because he or she was appointed by a previous administration.
Which boss?
I'm looking at an institution, and I'm just saying that if the new government has a vision of one district, one factory, and I'm heading an institution that would directly have to execute this vision of the new administration, as somebody who was appointed by a previous administration, can't I still take on this vision by this new administration and carry it out? Or unless the president deems it fit that I can do it, that's the only reason he would let me stay.
No, of course. If the president believes in you and says that you were a CEO of a certain public corporation in the previous administration, and he has trust in you and thinks that you can carry out his vision, it is still the pleasure of the president.
Which is almost not the case.
Which is almost not the case because when a new administration comes into being, the president comes with his own people. Every political party in opposition is a potential party in government. So you ought not to come into government before you decide on what to do. Before you come into government, you should have decided on certain political offices you want to fill. And we should have decided on which persons you want them to fill those political positions. So if in the previous government you were CEO, you've chopped your post small, and a new administration has come into being, you really have to leave for somebody else to take over.
I'm also thinking about continuity. So we're looking at national identification, for instance, and we know that we've put in a lot of money. I've just been thinking, now that there's a new head, does it mean that the vision is going to change? We need money again to carry out or to implement something else again?
I mean, it's not going to change. Who started the national identification thing? It is the Kufuor government, right? When NDC took over, they continued up to a point. But we thought that by this time, they would have finished with the registration of all citizens and non-citizens. But the institution was challenged financially. I quite remember at a point in time, they appeared before one of these committees and they were lamenting seriously about inadequacy of funds to carry out their function. This government has promised that it will continue with a vision. It will continue with the registration of the citizens.
And again, we've seen the head go, the previous person
yes,
go, and there's a new person.
We don't know why the head could not bring pressure to bear upon the government to ensure that it carries out, he carries out, the mandate that has been entrusted onto his care.
So in that sense, I can conclude by saying he was fired because he was incompetent.
I'm not saying he was incompetent. He was fired because he was with the previous administration and would think that we have somebody else to fill that position to carry out the vision of the president.
Okay, let's end with this final bit. You sit on 3 committees. You chair 2 of those committees in Parliament. You deal with state institutions because you work kind of together, just as you're expecting a bill to come from the executive, for instance. Are you expected to legally take monies from the institutions that appear before you?
I don't take monies from institutions. I work for Parliament. Parliament has a budget. If we need to go for a workshop outside Parliament, to the extent the Parliament has a budget, Parliament will have to vote the bill. And as a chairman, I deal with institutions, but I also have a clerk who most often than not has direct links with the institutions with respect to exchange of correspondence and so on and so forth. So if we have to go for a workshop, let's say outside Accra or even within Accra, it is the responsibility of the clerk to ensure that the welfare of the members on my committee is catered for. So I don't take monies. Because I have just assumed office. We haven't, as it were, seriously started any work. So I haven't yet dealt with the institution.
I'm not even talking about this particular parliament. I'm just talking about your work in general, because in recent times, with this particular expose about the PRC paying monies to some members of a committee when they were doing work for it, or work for the state really, they've had to give them some monies apart from that, as in gifts in cash. So we're just wondering if it's mandatory for institutions that deal with Parliament to give them special gifts and to give them monies on occasions, things like that.
No, it's not.
Is there room for that?
I mean, it's not mandatory. And you cannot compel an institution to give you money because you're going to work on a bill or on a job that concerns the institution. That ought not to be, that should not be your responsibility.
But is it legal?
But if it's not, I mean, I'm coming. But if the institution itself thinks that, oh, I've taken members of parliament outside Accra, members of parliament are on recess, I have to force them from their constituencies to, let's say, Koforidua. The institution in its wisdom decides that, let me give something small to the members. I don't think that will be considered as a bribe. That may be considered as something aimed at facilitating the work of the members or the committee. But if the institution decides not to give anything, as a member of parliament, that is why you are elected into parliament to work as a member of parliament. If you are to go outside Accra to work, it is part of your responsibility. And working outside Accra is an extension of the work of the Office of Parliament. So if you go outside Accra to work, to the extent that that is an extension of the work of the Member of Parliament, you are not supposed to expect anything from any institution whose work you went and did for it.
Okay. Can we deal with the legal aspect of it? Is it legal for an institution that you're doing something with to give the committee and its members money?
Whether it is legal or not legal, it depends on the circumstances, whether under which that money is given to the members by the institution. The difference between bribe and gift, or bribery and gift, is very slim. At what point in time was the money given? Was it before or after?
As in before the work?
What was the motive behind the giving of the money? Was it to influence a decision that is to be taken by the members? What kind of work, in this particular case, if it's a bill, what kind of bill are the members supposed to work on? Is it a bill intended to favor that institution? Is it a bill that the institution wants at all costs passed into law, for which reason the institution has decided to dole out money to the members on that committee? So you have to look at it from so many angles. The circumstance under which that money is given. But if money is given, you're finished with your work, the institution decides, oh, just to facilitate your work, or for the inconvenience you went through, I'm giving this money to you as a gift. To me, that ought not to create any hulabalo or brouhaha.
Okay.
But when members of parliament expect something from the institution, or say that at all costs, that institution must bring something to the members, I will consider that scenario to be extortion.
Isn't that what usually happens? Because we're told, even though people won't go on record, that as for parliament's committees, when you're going to meet them, you must have something.
Who said so? I'm not aware of that.
That's why I started by saying they will not go on record, but they will tell you that it happens.
I'm not aware of that. You see, there is always a perception. Oh, we heard, but it's difficult to get the evidence. We don't need to be working with yeses. Oh, they say, probably what they say may be different from what is actually pertaining on the ground. You need to deal with a committee in Parliament before you can come to a legitimate or logical conclusion that this committee, when I went, I sent a bill to the committee to be worked on for me by the committee. They took money from me and they made it a condition that if you don't bring the money, we will not be working for you. That will be extortion and that will be bribery. I haven't seen anything like that. I'm a chairman.
But you also haven't heard what we hear.
We've all heard. As for hearing hearsays, we've all been hearing. And we've heard it on the radio many times with our number, that people have been accusing members of parliament of taking money. Even people, knowledgeable people, to me, without even any scintilla of evidence, do go on air to say that we've heard. As for hearing, we don't work with I've heard or hearsay. You need to have some scintilla of evidence to be able to come to a legitimate or logical conclusion that members of parliament do take a bribe. When you bring that complaint before parliament, that you have evidence that this member of parliament or that member of parliament or this committee that take money from us, as an institution, we also have a way of dealing with the situation.
Okay. Maybe we have to, I don't know how, because you're dealing with these same committees, you come to them again. If you want to report them, how do you go to them again? I'm just thinking about the reasons people won't come forward.
Which committee?
No, I'm not looking at a particular committee. I'm just saying that if I'm a state institution and I'm dealing with a certain committee in Parliament, and this is what it takes, I have to give them something, and now I have to go and report. But I will deal with them again. So how do you go and report somebody that you would constantly be dealing with, knowing that you come into contact again?
It depends.
But we will see. Maybe someday, just someday, depends, somebody would have the evidence and report to Parliament. But you have a big job, because it looks like this particular Parliament, there are a lot of issues coming out of it, and all eyes are on you, especially with bribery allegation incident here and there. We hope that you come out of it with your integrity still very much intact. Are you hopeful?
Yes, we are hopeful. We are hopeful. At the end of the day, the people of Ghana want the truth. That is why, as a committee in our wisdom, we decided to go public. We could have decided to do it in camera. But because of the brouhaha following this bribery allegation, we decided that if we did it in camera, people might be tempted to conclude that the committee had something to hide. To the best of my knowledge, the chairman and the rest of us, and Parliament as an institution, have nothing to hide. We want to bring the truth or the veracity or otherwise of the whole bribery allegation out. That is why the witnesses that we called, we took the evidence in the open. Journalists were there. It was televised, and people of Ghana saw what went on before the committee. So at the appropriate time, we'll come up with a report I think that will be acceptable to Parliament, that will be acceptable to the people of Ghana.
Has that brought some kind of shame? Because, listening to even the testimonies, it wasn't anything like Parliament. It was like, you're not kids. I mean, like, this person said this and did that and that kind of thing. It was a whole different episode. It wasn't like the normal Parliament where you're debating on big issues, and it kind of, do you feel that it lowered Parliament in a certain way?
Yeah.
Doing it the way it happened and members testifying.
Yeah, Parliament is a dignified institution. In fact, it's the second arm of government. Parliament is the representative of the people of Ghana. So, for instance, as a member of Parliament, if my constituent hear that I've been involved in a bribery allegation, that is a grave source of concern to my people. And that is a grave source of concern to me myself and to my family, etc., etc. That is why I'm saying, since the issue cropped up, a lot of people have spoken to the issue. Some have drawn their own conclusions based on perceptions that people have about Parliament. Let's wait and see what happens.
When are we getting the report, though?
As for the reports, I cannot tell. Yesterday, we held a meeting. We'll meet again today and decide on when the report will be ready.
Okay.
Because it also depends on the work of Parliament. You know, we are debating the budget. I don't know when the debate will end. I don't know whether we can, in the course of the debate, chip in our report and debate the report.
Okay.
The report will be brought before Parliament. It will be debated. People will share their views on the report.
Oh, okay. And then you vote on it. Is that it?
No, we will not vote on it.
Okay.
It's a report that will be debated. Is it?
But it will be a conclusive report.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. With people exonerated and that kind of thing.
That's
Well, thank you very much
Okay,
to you, sir. And I hope that we can always call on you.
Yes.
This hasn't been boring at all.
Yeah,
I know that the Honorable Inusaf Hussein couldn't show because he said he was in traffic. But you chair the Judiciary Committee. You also chair the Constitutional Legal
so I have
Committee.
dual functions.
Yeah.
But I've been a member on this committee, on these three committees for the past 8 years.
And the subsidiary legislative subsidiary. Okay.
I think for the past 8 years.
Wow.
I was on it since 2009. Yes, I've been on it since 2009. It is the judiciary that I became member in 2013.
Okay.
As for the constitutional legal, since 2009. From 2009 to 12, I was a member on the health.
Okay.
But from 2012, I was dropped, and then I went to judiciary.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with the committee.
Well, congratulations to you. These are big. I'll come to you maybe in Parliament for a judiciary conversation, because that's also another big thing altogether. Honourable, thank you very much for your time. That's the Member of Parliament for Ofinso South in the Ashanti region, and he also chairs the Judiciary Committee. He sits on the Subsidiary Legislative Committee in Parliament, the Legislation Committee, and also chairs the Legal Constitutional Affairs Committee in Parliament. Thank you very much for being here.